Video is not actually about the Fruit of the Loom logo, or more accurately, its trademark or service mark or whatever. But we're going to go through it really quickly. 1893, we have in the image an apple. It's presumed to be an apple. I think these are grapes, another variety of grapes, some other plant type, what looks to be oak leaves or some other fall time leaves, and another one back here from a different type of tree, invoking that this is from a harvest after a long summer, and a green leaf back here. Here we see an almost incomprehensibly compacted version of the same thing, done as a black and white. You can tattoo or brand a piece of wood for a box kind of thing that says Fruit of the Loom very prominently. And it's a long, slender type, so you could put it on a branding bar. That's literally branding. That's where the term comes from. Fruit of the Loom up here, it's a drawing, a line art drawing of the same thing approximately. The basic idea of it is that in the description that was given, it would describe the picture with the expression Fruit of the Loom, which is the service mark or trademark statement, and then describe the picture that was drawn or photographed or whatever. Here we have again, this listing in pictures. Here we have blue grapes, it looks like. Here we got that leaf on the right side. It's now yellow instead of orange, so it's not fall colors. They've diminished the leaf back here by cutting off part of it. This is a chopped up job, nice crop. We have green grapes here. Here's a green leaf. Again, these were fall colored leaves down here. And an apple. And in the background you have a blurry version of this one that was much clearer. Over here we have a black and white one here, and it says Fruit of the Loom Fabrics. It could have Fruit of the Loom other, you'll see in a minute. Here we have one that has a golden, off gold or ground brass, that's what it's supposed to be, wax seal type stamp shape. That's somebody did it for stylistic reasons. Over here we have almost identical. This is the black and white version. When you do these things, if you don't know about doing trademarks and service marks, you use what we would call a low and high res version these days, or an easy to print one so it can be done in newspapers. You need to make sure that either your logo translates easily to black and white, or you make a separate one that's almost identical but line art based, because this is how you're going to print things in books. In fact, they used to require it. Over here we have Fruit of the Loom Centennial, 1851 to 1951. Okay, and it has this in the logo in, again, what is a wax stamp appearance. And you can see that this is a ribbon, and it has the standard ruffles at the end of the ribbon thing, which was very popular. The idea is to make these distinctive and easily understood. And this one was the Centennial version, just didn't say anything below it and didn't have the word Centennial. The more busy a logo is, the harder it is for it to be duplicated, etc. But it's also harder to read. This thing here is almost impossible to read. This one's a little harder to read, but it's at least a little easier to read, but not much. That one, a lot less of a problem. And then we're going to get to what happened. We're going to say the 1960s. Fruit of the Loom and just the fruit contents. You'll notice that instead of it having all of these, I'm going to consider them olives, I don't know. 3 of them down here are omitted down here. Then here it is in black and white format, 66, and it has something down here, and that actually says in there, unconditionally guaranteed. That was part of the description. Now we have Fruit of the Loom. I'm assuming this is soap, 1979. And the logo has everything offset to fit on the bottle. Here we go again. Fruit of the Loom, unconditionally guaranteed again. And it has it very simplified. Instead of complicated colors here with green and orange and making it very, very interesting like these were, this was just turned into red, blue, green, and yellow or orange, looking almost like bananas in the background. Here we are with a black and white version of it, and it was used continually. Then they did this one, 1996, Fruit of the Loom. They go back and put in, I guess, unconditionally guaranteed wrapped around it in the circle, with the fruit spilling out of it. That's 1996. Here we are, we get back to just showing the pile of fruit and Fruit of the Loom, period, full stop. And that carried through to 2020 with only slight changes, and now we have the current version, which shows it's missing the three, I'm going to call them olives. Now they're just balls. Instead of green grapes, we have this. This is also that it'll print, or more accurately, color stitch properly in a logo you put on clothing. Okay, now what has this got to do with a cornucopia? Somebody could, in an offhand way, say that this is a logo that has a cornucopia of data in it, or something like that. A jumbled or messy or complicated or challenging logo that you have to go through it. Because at this point, you can't identify what's in here except an apple. That's about it. The rest of it, who knows? So let's move forward. This is a 1950s era Fruit of the Loom stock certificate. Okay, it just shows the same image. I'm pretty sure it's an image that was drawn by a relative or friend or maybe some ad company a long time ago. And again, it's referring to 1950 back through 1850s, centennials. Here we are with the unconditionally guaranteed wraparound version, Fruit of the Loom here. This is a Forbes magazine, September 1998 statement, page 812 or 811, depending on how you type it up when you're looking it up off of it. I have the archive of just this image. Brand awareness, Fruit's well-known cornucopia logo. Now, the person who wrote the copy for this wasn't looking at this. That's an example of somebody presuming or making a statement like that. Now, I want to point out that I've only heard cornucopia logo used in a setting only a little bit once that referred to something using the word cornucopia for a different meaning. Companies that have a huge number of different businesses, lots of pots, lots of things cooking on their stove, if you will, where they have lots of different things. They're a conglomerate, and they're handling steel manufacturing, and they're making lawnmowers, and making machetes, and maybe making sombreros, whatever. They might refer to a logo that includes everything as much as possible that corporation sells as a cornucopia logo. I've seen that reference once. I don't believe that's standard in the business. This is an example of a Forbes article literally saying this is a cornucopia logo when it's not. That's how hardcore this is embedded in people's psyche. Now we're going to get to where all of you will find two examples of a cornucopia logo that literally just take, let me get to it, this logo here and throw a cornucopia behind it, because that's really easy to do in Paint and Paint Shop Pro and Photoshop. This one here shows exactly what you're expecting. And this is literally somebody faking it. The reason for that is, even though this is a wrinkled piece of cloth, and they got the distortion on the word fruit correct, the logo isn't distorted. And yes, it's a duplicate of one that was created on Reddit in 2023 or so. Now we're going to get to the point of the video. The Mandela effect is propaganda. And I mean literally the origin story for Nelson Mandela dying in prison, and that the president couldn't possibly be Nelson Mandela, someone that the state successfully threw in prison until he died. No, it has to be a doppelganger because we're not going to admit we lost. There's an entire group of people that are very boring in South Africa that are still really still upset by the fact that it is not apartheid. It is not based on the country being run exclusively by white people. There are people like that in the United States. We call them racists, Nazis, etc., KKK. They're pretty easy to figure out. And they will absolutely say things that are not true chronically. When Nelson Mandela got out of prison and ended up running the country that originally imprisoned him, a literal rags to riches story, that is not going to sit well with people who want to have the illusion of power. They can't handle it. This is copium. And propaganda was produced that said he died in prison. And that you better know your place, and a bunch of other things. But we skipped that. That's actually where this came from. Nelson Mandela was rumored to have died in prison because the whole point was he was to be held in prison until he died. And it was such a foregone conclusion, and then it didn't fucking happen. And he ended up being, quite literally, the president. Good, bad, or indifferent, that's what happened. But no, I can't let that happen. I'm going to imagine a parallel universe where he died in prison, and for some reason, someone else was produced and put in place. And yes, someone's going to quote a name down below in the description of some other person. Just like Barack Obama had to have a dad that was a different person than what he was. Because anything's better than admitting your country was run by a black man if you're a bunch of Nazis, KKK members, and racists. I don't care if you like that answer, that's actually what happened. So what does this got to do with the Fruit of the Loom logo? Not a goddamn thing. Being unable to acknowledge you made a mistake means you can never correct your mistake. You'll always be wrong until you acknowledge you were wrong and then learn the correct answer. I had to deal with someone who decided that because 1 times 1 equals 1, 1,000 times 1,000 has to equal 1,000. Because that makes, in mathematics sense, if x times x equals x, then x times x, literally just the letter pattern, 1,000 and 1,000, must equal 1,000. That doesn't make any mathematical sense, but in a logic sense, kinda. Now, I had to explain to someone that it's not just the symbology you're looking at, it's that their number value is 1,000. So if you take 1,000 times 1,000, it's a larger number than 1,000. And it took that person a long time to get that they were talking about a procedure, not a relation. A good example of this is this equals this. The 1942 and the 1936 logo are identical, except one is missing color and grayscale and one is extremely simplified and barely recognizable. But they're the same. They're kinda, but they're not. Also, I should point out, again, the extra 3, I'm going to call them olives, aren't down here. So why am I showing you this? Okay, what happened is someone confused, quote-unquote, confused, a logo with a cornucopia on it with the Fruit of the Loom logo and cannot get over it. It's that straightforward. So what do? Instead of saying, I am a human, I can make a mistake, I probably made a mistake, there's no evidence I can show for it, we have the other alternative. I will never stop screaming about being right, and I will keep picking fights on the internet, and that's it. And the next option, I'll fake one, which is what happened in the other one where you saw it on some clothing and that sort of thing. The people who actually are willing to go through those lengths, mostly because they're fucking with Mandela effect believers. And very importantly, they promote driving people up the walls by gaslighting them into believing that they're right. There's not just one kind of gaslighting. You can be gaslighted to keep believing something. If you want evidence of it, watch every religion do its thing, to know that you're easily manipulated and controlled. And very importantly, so that you'll be crazy on the internet and provide entertainment for them, because they know it will be entertaining for them. Now, there's another alternative where you can decide for some reason that it is a Marvel Universe thing, you're Doctor Strange, and it's a parallel universe. And on top of that, before anybody points out that that means that you're fixating on yourself being the main character syndrome mode, you'll immediately say, and they, the infamous they that's always there, is the ones creating this. Yeah, it's totally what's going on. They're fucking with you. Okay. Now, the thing is that, again, I'm going to point out really quickly here that the examples of that logo there, the one that's in color and black and white, have been produced, and it's not that difficult, by just taking the actual logo and reusing it to make one. You can do it easy. Just look up cornucopia, find a line art version of it, black and white, and you can find 2 or 3 of them. 2 versions were made almost the same way, where it was one cornucopia and then the other. They were all made in the same year, approximately. One of them was made by the Fruit of the Loom Company for an April Fool's joke. Pro tip, don't ever fucking do that. If there's some conspiracy theory about your company or you personally, don't ever feed into it by joking about it. That will never make anything good happen. But yeah, that's all there is to it. It's a mistake. This happens all the time. So here's your challenge. What is your favorite movie or TV show? And write down every quote. Don't peek first. Write down every quote from your favorite one. One of my favorites is Firefly. Okay, you can look that movie and or TV show up. I will get a bunch of stuff wrong easily. I know that because I see other people do it. I know I've done it. I made a recording of myself quoting everything I thought I remembered. Half of it wasn't from the movie; it was from something else, and or the TV show. There's a TV show and a movie. So, and same thing with the first episode, the real first episode of Star Trek, The Cage, or variations of it. There's several now variations of it. You can look up this stuff and find people getting it wrong all the time, and they're very sure they're right about it. And instead of saying, "Oh, I remembered something wrong," they'll get embarrassed. Their ego gets involved, and they can decide that, well, someone changed it, and that actually did happen. There are variations of it. Several variations of the same episode exist for some damned reason. But when you remember an expression from the movie Fight Club and it's not in any of the versions of it, that just means you made a mistake. I want to point out the last thing that's ironic on the Mandela effect being at one time a Wikipedia page. I definitely remember it, don't you? And then you find out it never was. It was always redirected to false memory syndrome or something like that. It never existed as a separate page. I was shocked to find that out. But then again, Wikipedia is notorious for erasing crap so thoroughly that it makes it almost impossible to retrieve it. So I went ahead and looked up variations for Mandela effect, including different capitalizations and other things like hyphens. Couldn't find a single one of them on Wikipedia. And Wikipedia does not actually get rid of the archive versions on archive.org. They just don't do that. So, and I literally found out they've never done it. The only time they'll do it is if there's a criminal complaint, and they don't do anything about it. It's actually the archive.org website, and they have no reason to erase this. So yeah, the Mandela effect, again, is based on, propaganda from South Africa, because people could not tolerate that someone who was part of a group that they were trying to suppress ended up running the damn country. And that's where that came from. And it's not, that's one of the things that makes it so ironic. It really does prove that when in doubt, assume the Mandela effect you're quoting is propaganda or people just refusing to acknowledge they made a mistake and not learning from it. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. You'll all need it.